This video is in response to Aug's latest video, and it's in response to a very specific part of it, namely the very last part, the last 2 minutes or so, when he was talking about the pin in the circle. What he was kind of saying is you have a rotating mass. Okay, say you have a rotating mass of whatever, and your relative motion to the mass, the starting point of your relative motion to that mass is in the very, very center of it. And say you're not necessarily connected to it, but you're very near to it. And you start at the very center and you're moving outward from the center along the surface of the rotating mass. And he was saying the pin, say you have a pin, right? And you have the option, you have two options with the pin. You can either hold the pin, don't do anything with the pin, hold it, or you can stick it into the mass, the rotating mass. And what he's saying is that, from my understanding, if you're starting at the center, now your motion from the center toward the periphery of the mass, that is not under your control, that's happening automatically. But what you can control is whether or not you affect the mass by inserting your pin into it. And that's all you have. You have nothing else. Okay, you have other things going on around you. You have the whole everything going on around you, inside of you, all of that. But as far as what's under your control, it's just whether or not you stick the pin into the mass. And now if you stick the pin into the mass, it's going to affect the whole thing, because just as in, say, the old record players, the same, it's a similar sort of thing as the I don't even know what it's called, but the piece that contacts the record while the record is spinning. If that piece is not in contact but the record is still spinning underneath, then no music is produced, and the whole record player is essentially useless. It's doing nothing. It's spinning, and the possibility of music is there via the pin, but nothing is happening because the pin is not dropped onto the record. Now, the pin doesn't need to do anything else. It doesn't need to come up with philosophies of music. It doesn't need to come up with any kind of a plan. All it needs to do is drop to the record and make contact and hold. And if it does that, then music will be produced, or whatever else was programmed into the record in the first place. This is a way of simplifying the idea, the conception of free will, and the idea of, people since the dawn of time have been asking, what is our purpose here? What are we doing here? Why are we here? And then everybody and their mother comes up with complex explanations of what we're doing here and why we're here, when if you're taking the pin and the rotating mass analogy and applying it to your own self, and if that was the only link, the only necessary link between the mass, the rotating mass, and the pin either producing something or not, then application of free will becomes very simple at that point, and it's just a matter of, do I drop the pin or do I not? And this doesn't lessen the other components of the situation, which, you know, can be anything in your life. Literally, I mean, look at your present moment as it is right now. You will notice that there are quite a few things going on and that you're in control of virtually nothing. But assuming that you are in control of one thing, and that is whether or not you drop the pin into the mass, if you come to that realization, then you just say, okay, well, I'll drop the pin. Excuse me. And once you drop the pin, then there will be no questioning or doubting as to whether or not that was the correct path, because having beautiful music being produced versus having simply a silent spinning mass and you sitting on the periphery of the mass or sitting in a quarter of an inch above it and not knowing what's going on, the difference is very easily discernible, but you won't know anything about it until you've tried dropping the pin into the rotating mass. And if you want to take that analogy a little bit more of a practical stance for humans and the world, or humans in the realm, the way I see it is that okay, the pin is focus, it's conscious focus on the present moment. That's it. So if you're dropping the pin on the rotating mass, you're becoming present. You're returning to the present, and therefore producing the melody or producing the music. And if you're not dropping the pin, then you have the rotating mass and you have your awareness, but there's a disjointed aspect and there are questions and you don't know what you're doing, yet still things appear to be moving around you. And the aspect of forgetfulness comes into this as well, because as we drop the pin into the mass, we have the aha moment and we think, oh, that's how I make the music happen, you know? And we're like, oh, this is amazing. But then we forget that it was as simple as dropping the pin into the rotating mass, and we start thinking, oh, well, you know, I need to start changing the speed of the rotation, and I need to start changing the pressure with which I apply the pin into it, and I need to change, you know, the shape of the pin. I need to change everything about everything, and that's what we kind of do. We get ourselves into just a frenzy trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be, when really all we need to do is just drop the pin in and let the music happen. It's really simple, according to that analogy.